Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to understanding the big sectors shaping things.
And today, we're definitely tackling a big one.
Absolutely. We're launching into the global aerospace market. Our mission really is to take some fascinating new data and, pull out the key insights, turn the numbers into a story.
And it is a story about a powerhouse sector. It's not just economics, it's fundamental. How we connect, defend ourselves, explore.
Yeah.
It's all changing,
Totally. And the scale is just wow. Okay, get this. The market hit $298.3 billion in revenue back in 2021.
which was already huge.
Right. But it didn't stop there. It jumped to $401.25 billion in 2025.
Okay.
And the forecast, it's projected to soar to $726.02 billion by 2033.
Wow. That's more than double the 2021 figure.
Exactly. It works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 7.69% over that whole period.
Which is really solid, sustained growth. And what's interesting is it's not just one thing pulling it along, is it?
No, not at all.
You've got civil aviation, bouncing back, but also pushing for new tech. Then there's defense spending, reacting to, well, everything going on globally.
Right.
And space. The commercial side of space is just exploding. These three things together, that's the engine.
So what we want to do today is unpack that, go region by region, see where the growth is happening, why it's happening, look behind those big numbers for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's driven by real things. Like you said, air travel roaring back, defense budgets going up pretty much everywhere,
Uh-huh.
and space programs, both government and increasingly private companies, pushing the boundaries. These are the concrete drivers.
And the sources we looked at even touch on what's next. Things like AI and avionics.
Self-learning systems on planes, basically,
wow.
making things potentially safer, more efficient,
Yeah. And carbon neutral aircraft, too. A huge push for sustainability.
which the industry really needs to tackle.
Definitely. But okay, let's start with the here and now. Where's the biggest piece of the pie today?
Well, you have to start with North America. It's still the undisputed leader. Sets the global pace, really.
Okay, so North America, the numbers are $119.02 billion in 2021.
Right.
Projected to reach $280.17 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 7.29%. So still very strong growth. Why so dominant? Is it just sheer size?
Size is part of it, but it's more the ecosystem, the innovation, the established industry. And U.S. is, of course, the giant within that.
Naturally.
It was $91.21 billion in 2021, projected to hit $210.64 billion by 2033. That's driven by, well, a mix. Strong demand for commercial flights.
Right, the internal market.
Exactly. Plus massive defense spending, which fuels a lot of R&D. And then there's the boom in space tech investment, especially private companies.
SpaceX, Blue Origin, all those guys.
Precisely. It's like a three-pronged engine just within the U.S.
And it's not just the U.S. and North America, right? Canada's got a pretty significant sector, too.
Absolutely. Canada's aerospace manufacturing is quite vibrant, forecasted to grow from about $12.7 billion to over $32.5 billion by 2033. That's an 8.58% CAGR.
Better than the U.S. average, actually.
Yeah, they have a strong niche in regional aircraft, business jets, specialized components, MRO services, maintenance, repair, overhaul. Very sophisticated.
Okay. And Mexico?
Mexico's interesting. Projected to reach $37 billion by 2033, up from around $15 billion. A big part of that is its growing role in making aerospace parts.
Component exports.
Right. And that whole nearshoring trend. Companies wanting manufacturing closer to the U.S. market. It helps with supply chains, cuts down travel time. It's becoming a real strategic location.
That makes sense. Okay, so that's North America. Let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, how's it looking there?
Europe's also showing really strong growth,
Wow.
expected to go from about $86 billion in 2021 to over $200 billion. $202.49 billion by 2033. A CAGR pretty similar to North America, actually, 7.28%.
And what's driving that? Is it similar factors?
Similar, but maybe with a different emphasis. Europe's strength is really in its combined tech leadership and production capacity. Think Airbus, obviously.
HT plant.
Yeah. And countries like France, Germany, Italy are key. France is forecast to grow from about $11.5 billion to nearly $29 billion. Germany from $13.4 billion to almost $30 billion. They have these long aerospace histories, lots of R&D investment.
Okay. But I saw something interesting in the data about the rest of Europe. That category seems to be booming.
Ah, yes. That is interesting. That group is projected to grow from roughly $20 billion to over $53 billion.
Wow.
and its CAGR is the highest in Europe, 8.78%.
So what does that tell us? Who's in the rest of Europe driving this?
It tells us the industry's base is broadening. We're
Yeah.
seeing, new players, especially in Eastern and Southern Europe, attracting more investment.
So new manufacturing hubs emerging.
Potentially, yeah.
Hmm.
Countries maybe with lower costs, skilled workers are becoming more attractive. It hints at a kind of diversification beyond the traditional French-German core, a strategic shift maybe.
Fascinating. Okay, let's pivot now to Asia Pacific, APAC. Always dynamic, but the aerospace growth seems particularly fast there.
It really is gaining altitude rapidly, as you say. The region's expected to go from around $57 billion in 2021 to $148 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 8.57%. Really high.
Higher than North America or Europe.
Yeah. And within APAC, China is a huge story. It's the region's biggest aerospace economy, set to grow from nearly $17 billion to over $42 billion.
What's behind China's push?
It's a very deliberate strategy. They're pushing hard for self-reliance, developing their own aircraft like the Comac jets.
Right, to compete with Boeing and Airbus eventually.
That's the goal. Plus, they have very ambitious space programs. They're building their own capabilities right across the board.
And then there's India. The numbers for India are incredible.
India is a definite standout.
Yeah.
Expected to jump from about $8 billion in 2021 to nearly $23 billion by 2033.
And the CAGR there is the highest in the whole region, right? 9.35%.
That's right. Phenomenal growth. It's fueled by a couple things. One is just the massive growth in domestic air travel, more people flying within India.
For a rising middle class.
Exactly. And second, strong government initiatives like Make in India, really pushing for local manufacturing, including in defense aerospace, building up their own industry.
Makes sense. And it's not just China and India and APAC, is it?
No. Japan, South Korea, Australia, various Southeast Asian nations, they all play significant roles. And similar to Europe, that rest of APAC category is really surging.
Let me guess. High TGR there, too.
The highest, actually. Projected to go from about $6 billion to $19 billion with a CAGR over 10%, 10.44%.
Wow. So it's widespread growth across these emerging markets.
It is. It suggests that many smaller but rapidly developing economies are finding their niches, maybe in MRO, components, drones, meeting that growing regional demand for connectivity.
Okay, really dynamic picture in Asia. Now let's shift to a region maybe less discussed in aerospace, but the projections are huge. South America, doubling in size.
Yeah, quite a leap. The forecast is from about $20 billion in 2021 to nearly $54 billion by 2033. That's an 8.60% AGR.
And Brazil's a leader there, I assume, with Embraer?
Correct. Brazil's set to expand from $6.4 billion to about $16.5 billion. Embraer is a major global player, especially in regional jets.
But it's not just Brazil.
Now, Argentina and Colombia are showing strong growth too. And the rest of South America category is also climbing fast, from $8 billion to over $22 billion.
What's driving that broader growth, more regional flights?
That's a big part of it. A real push for better internal connectivity across the continent. You see governments partnering with global firms, investing in upgrading airline fleets, modernizing airports. It's about linking the region together more effectively for trade, tourism, everything.
Okay. Moving on to the Middle East, still a critical hub.
Absolutely critical, especially for commercial airlines and also military aerospace. It's just strategically positioned.
Connects east and west.
Exactly. The market there is growing from about $11.6 billion to nearly $25 billion by 2033. Countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they've invested massively in becoming global aviation hubs.
Emirates, Qatar Airways, Etihad.
World-class airlines and airports. The UAE alone is growing at about 7.4% CAGR, from $1.17 billion to $2.73 billion. They're really diversifying their economies into high-tech sectors like aerospace.
And the rest of the region is growing too.
Yep, the rest of the Middle East market goes from about $3 billion to over $6 billion. They're building the infrastructure, the MRO capabilities, the whole ecosystem.
Okay, last but definitely not least, Africa. The data says it's the fastest growing region globally.
By far. It's an incredible story unfolding. The growth rate is just astounding. A 12.47% CAGR.
12.47%.
Yep. So the total revenue is forecast to rise from about $4.5 billion in 2021 to nearly $17 billion by 2033.
So still smaller overall than other regions, but growing much faster.
Exactly. And you see transformative growth in key countries like Nigeria and South Africa, driven by, urbanization, economic development, and just the sheer need to connect vast distances.
And I bet the rest of Africa numbers are even wilder.
Yeah, you guessed it. That segment has the highest projected CAGR of any region anywhere in the world, 12.85%.
Unbelievable. What's enabling that kind of acceleration?
It's a combination.
Mm.
Local airlines are finally expanding their fleets to meet this rising demand, both within countries and regionally. And governments are really prioritizing aviation infrastructure now. They see air links as absolutely essential for economic growth, trade, even aid delivery. Africa's really taking off, quite literally.
Wow. Okay, so let's zoom back out. Bring it all together. The global picture is one of, well, remarkable growth ahead for aerospace.
Absolutely. It's clear those main drivers, air travel's comeback, defense needs, and the space boom, are really powerful, sustained forces. They're not just short-term trends.
And we touched on the innovation coming too. AI in the cockpit, greener planes.
Yeah, the push towards carbon-neutral flight is huge. Like the source said, the skies are not the limit. They're just the beginning.
That's a great
It
line.
really frames it well.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on. If this sector is really just getting started, despite these huge numbers, what does that actually mean for, global trade or how we connect or even just daily life down the road?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How will these shifts in aerospace fundamentally change things on the ground? Think about delivery drones at scale, hypersonic travel, maybe routine space tourism. How does it reshape commerce, personal connections, maybe even how we see our planet? What does this soaring market truly unlock for us? Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the noise, find the key sources, and bring you the essential insights. Today we're jumping into, well, a really dynamic sector, aerospace. It's changing fast, moving beyond just airplanes, reaching out into space. Our mission, figure out what's driving all this.
And the numbers, well, they really tell a story. Looking at cognitive market research, the global market was around $298 billion back in 2021. But the projection, it's set to explode, basically.
Yeah.
More than double to something like $726 billion by 2033.
Wow, double.
Yeah, it's huge. That's a compound growth rate of nearly 8% a year, almost 7.7% to be precise.
Okay, 7.7%. That's really strong, consistent growth.
Exactly. And it's not just random. It's fueled by big shift, recovering travel demand, hitting climate goals, plus major new investments.
Right. So those numbers are pretty eye-watering. Let's break it down. What are the main engines behind this growth? What should you really be watching?
Okay, well, the first big one is pretty straightforward. More people want to fly, especially in regions like Asia Pacific and the Middle East, so airlines. They need more planes, and not just any planes. They're chasing these newer fuel-efficient models.
To meet the demand, but also keep fuel costs down. Right. Makes sense.
Precisely. It's about scaling up smartly. Then, number two. The military side is booming. Defense budgets are generally up worldwide. Countries are pouring money into upgrading their air power. Meaning next-gen fighters, sophisticated drones, better surveillance tech. It's all tied into national security concerns and, well, the geopolitical climate.
Okay, so market demand, defense spending. What about the tech itself? Any big breakthroughs really shaking things up?
Oh, absolutely. That's maybe the most exciting part. We're seeing things like AI actually in the cockpit, AI-powered avionics.
So they'll learn.
Sort of, yeah. They adapt for better safety, more efficiency. And then materials, lighter carbon composites, are making a huge difference in fuel burn. And of course, electric propulsion. That's a massive one. Promises much quieter, cleaner flights.
So these aren't just tweaks. They're fundamentally changing aircraft design and operation.
Exactly. Across the board, commercial, defense, everything.
Okay, so that's the tailwind pushing things forward.
Yeah.
But there must be turbulence too, right? What are the big challenges?
Definitely. No easy ride. A major hurdle is just the sheer cost and time it takes. Developing, testing, getting certifications for new aircraft or systems. It's incredibly expensive. Innovation takes deep pockets, and the payoff, the return on that R&D investment can take, well, years, sometimes decades.
A long game.
A very long game. And then there are the supply chains. They're notoriously complex in aerospace, global tension, shortages of key parts. It all makes this intricate web of suppliers really vulnerable. Delays, cost hikes, they ripple through quickly.
And I imagine environmental rules play a big part too.
Huge part. There's enormous pressure, rightly so, for the industry to clean up its act, reduce its carbon footprint, which means pouring more money into green tech, cleaner fuels, those electric engines we mentioned, which loops right back to those high development costs.
So big challenges, high costs, supply chain knots, green pressure. But it sounds like the innovation isn't stopping. What are some of the really fascinating trends emerging despite all that?
Yeah, the innovation pipeline is strong. One of the coolest, I think, is the push towards electric and hybrid electric planes. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's paving the way for things like open air mobility air taxis, essentially, and much greener short haul flights.
Yeah.
The race is definitely on.
Bear taxis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Well,
Clean.
space. It's not just NASA anymore, right?
That's
Commercial
cool.
space is exploding. We're talking private companies leading the charge on space tourism, satellite networks, moon missions, even deep space stuff. It's opening up totally new markets beyond Earth.
Whole new frontier, commercially speaking.
Absolutely. And back on Earth, there's this other tech trend, digital twins.
Explain that.
Wow.
Digital twin.
Okay, so imagine a perfect virtual copy of a real flying aircraft. It gets fed real-time data from sensors on the actual plane, the Internet of Things, basically. So you can monitor its health constantly, predict when a part might fail, and fix it before it breaks, using AI to analyze all that data.
Predictive maintenance on steroids. That must massively improve safety and cut costs.
Totally transforms operations, better safety, lower maintenance costs, less downtime. It's a quiet revolution, but a powerful one. So yeah, putting it all together, you've got strong civil aviation growth, major defense upgrades happening, space going commercial. It really feels like the aerospace industry is launching into a whole new era.
A new era indeed. It leaves you thinking whether we're talking electric jets hopping between cities or tourists looking down from orbit. The journey ahead is really just getting started. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.